Probably one of the most frustrating things about architecture is how difficult it is to find out more about projects. And that's because there's a few reasons why. One of the biggest reasons is that when architects create a really cool project, I guess in order to avoid getting criticized, they create this narrative that is usually full of jargon and makes no sense to the average person. And they tend to exaggerate some of the truths of the project. So at the end of it, you're listening to everything, and it's a combination of actual facts with poetic reasoning. And it just at the end makes no sense to anybody. It just sounds nice. And so a lot of other times there's parts of the project that are just not as exciting, but they're important to know about, and so they leave those details out, and we end up basically with a chili pot of information that makes no sense together. It's like if you added random ingredients from the pantry and you just don't know what the heck is going on. So I've taken it upon myself to dive in like some sort of rat detective, getting into the nooks and crannies of these projects from images and whatever text they decide to put on. And I try to uncover the mysteries of these projects like little hidden gold nuggets, almost like a Tomb Raider, where I'm just going into these projects and tearing them apart to find out more about them. And so that's exactly what I want to do with this project today. This is a project in Barcelona, and what they did here is that they took an existing project. I don't know what it was, but it's residential now. But let's assume it was residential before. And they took this project and they had to gut it out. And there was a few challenges that they faced along the way. The first challenge was that they can pretty much gut everything, even the envelope, except for the front facade. So they keep this facade right here. Now you see that there's a difference in materiality at the top, and I assume that that was part of the addition. I assume they were allowed to do that. Again, I don't have this information. That's just basically what I assume. Now, the second constraint that they had to face was that they had to design a program that would fit 5 to 6 inhabitants. Now, that to me sounds like they're permanent inhabitants. It's not guests. They're all going to live in this house. And then probably the biggest challenge that they face is that they want to have enough light and ventilation go into this house because you have this irregular plot of land. So this is the whole entire piece of land. This is the exterior. This is the backyard. Front facade over here, and then this space is what they're working with. And so what happens is, because of the shape of this and because it is so deep, they feared that this area, the middle of the house, was going to be way too dark, and they wanted to fix that. And so the big move, right? This is the main focus. Their big move is, let's carve out the inside of that and let natural light come in. This allows us to not only bring natural light from this side and this side, but now we're bringing it in to the middle. And so we won't have that problem anymore with the lack of light. And then we let air also flow. So if we take a look at this section, this is the street corner or the street facade, the front facade. This becomes the exterior condition, and we have natural ventilation occurring across. Now, this part looks segmented here. I'm pretty sure that there's a I don't know if there's a better, I don't have access to a better section, but the idea is I'm pretty sure that there's an entrance door, and then it becomes like this passageway where air can circulate. Now, there's a couple things that I want to get into. So right off the bat, this is a great move. They're bringing in light, they're bringing in ventilation, such a solid decision on their part. And this is standing on the ground level, looking up. This is what it looks like. Now, if you look at this image, I cannot tell if there is some glass there, right? It looks in the section like there is a window, an operable window, but how the hell do they operate that thing? That's what I don't understand. There's no explanation to that part. I would also assume that it's operable because they do have furniture that is at the ground level in that courtyard, and you can see it doesn't look like it's weather resistant furniture. I don't know. I just think that all this, especially this couch right here, I think it would get ruined if it starts to rain, but I don't know. But based on the section, it does have an operable window. I just don't know how they operate it. Now, when you look at this, right, it looks like rammed earth, which is it's really beautiful. I think this is such a nice detail, but it's actually concrete. It's cast in place concrete, but the way that they poured it in layers is to signify rammed earth. They don't say why they do that. They don't say why they chose rammed earth or the design to look like rammed earth. What they do say is that they use the word excavate, I believe that it is. So to me, this is referencing almost like if this is an underground project and they dig the spaces out, like they chiseled everything out of a block of what was existing there before. So it's like, you know, it goes back to the whole poetics of architecture. So I can't tell you why, but I will tell you that I'm not against it. What I am against is some of the decisions with the casework, the furniture that they use. And I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about like permanent furniture. It just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't do anything for the space. It looks kind of like I'm just gonna clutter that up. I feel like this is such a grand space. They talk about the importance of this space, right? This is like the heart, the soul, the essence of this project. You're bringing in light from the heavens and you're lighting everything up, and then you just throw that bookshelf there. I'm not against bookshelf. I just think it could have been like a more powerful statement. Same with this. You see, this is on the second level, and it's another bookshelf, but I don't know. It's just like it's thrown there. It feels like an afterthought. I feel like this could have been so much more powerful. So it's like you look at moments like this, and it's so elegant, right? They refer to this technique as pour, and it's actually in quotations, and I don't know why they refer to it as pour. I have no idea what they meant by that, but I will tell you that this does not look poor. This is like a very elegant, this is very beautiful. It's very reminiscent of something that's been discovered, and I love that so much. And that's what my problem is with this casework, is that then you have this, and it just, this, like, if you look at this casework, it makes the rest of the project look like a dilapidated structure. Whereas when you don't have the casework, like in this moment, it looks like something that has been discovered from antiquity. Why can't I say that word accurately? Antiquity. So it's moments like this where like I'm looking at the project and I'm just so into it, and then my blood starts to boil when I see little things like this, because I just don't understand how this made it to this part of the project. And it's not the color palette, because as you see in this moment, the wood trims and this, whatever that is over there, it's beautiful. It belongs. It's just the certain decisions that they make. But I digress. Let's talk about some of the spaces. If we go back to the floor plan, they mention hierarchy. That's one of the things that they mention. So when we look at this in plan, we'll see that the biggest volume, the most hierarchy, is their most important program. And then everything else kind of gets twisted based off of that, rotated. They don't mention why, but I mean, I'm sure that they looked at the plot of land and they made some decisions as to the angles that they were going to use. And it also makes the project somewhat more interesting. But when we look at the hierarchy, the second biggest is the kitchen. And if you go up to the next level, they kept the same dimensions for all the spaces. So they decided like this is hierarchy 1, then 2, then 3, and so on and so forth. And they keep the relationship of those spaces from level to level. And I love that, actually, because a lot of times, like when people design homes, what they do is that they'll just, every level is completely unique. It follows no organization, and it completely, that's when you start to dive into the whole cookie cutter. So this is not cookie cutter at all. Like, I appreciate this so much. Spaces like the kitchen is kind of hit or miss. Like if you take a look at this here, not a problem. It's not, it feels a little plain. It's dark, feels dark. But it feels like it's lacking something. If I was to rate it from a 1 through a 10, you know, I would just say that it's like an 8. But that's just like an arbitrary number. And I say that number because I want you to take a look at the other side. This is in the same space. And if you look at this picture, you see right here, that closet is this, or that pantry, or that I don't know what that is. And I'm too lazy to go back to the plan. But if you look at this side and you look at this side, this is more powerful than this, right? This looks shoddy. This looks like they skipped and cut a few corners, and this was an afterthought. And the same thing with this here. This just doesn't, it looks like it doesn't belong, none of it. But this tends to be more harmoniously. So what they should have done is brought some of more of the characteristics of this into here. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. I really don't know what to tell you, because more thought would have been needed to be given to this area right here. Because overall, look at this. This looks like something from a medical building. And then I'm not mad at the furniture selection, but you could tell that there was definitely more thought put into the courtyard, and then everything else was like a lack of time or budget. I'm also not too thrilled about what they did in the back. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Everything else that I've talked about just makes sense, but honestly, it's just kind of scary. And then you have all this, overgrown vegetation, and maybe that's whole part of the whole Tomb Raider vibe that they wanted to go for. Like, you stumbled upon this ancient tomb that you just discovered, and then here's some remnants of past life. But if that's what they're going for, they definitely nailed it. I'm not a fan of that at all. But I am a fan of spaces like this. You see what I'm saying? Like this is incredible. Now this is really freaking beautiful. They cut out a window and they are basically framing the exterior. Now it's not the exterior, it's the other side. There's more program there. It's probably just like a leisure space. But they do that also to bring in some of the light, and they create such a nice moment here. And see, this is that space. So it's basically in here looking through that window like some kind of peeping Tom. But the cool thing about it is that since this area is rotated on a different axis, like it looks like you're looking at a piece of like framed art, and it's actually a window. Now, there's certain moments like this that are very frightening to look at. I look at this and I'm horrified. And I'm curious as to what you guys think about this. Like, this might as well be a Bible right now. And I would not sleep in this room. I'll be honest with you, because I'd be afraid of waking up to the nun. And there's certain things like this microphone lantern. I don't know, what is this? This is probably like in one of my other projects they talked about, or one of the other projects that I was talking about in a previous video. They talked about having a family member they didn't like, so they wanted to push a button and like send them. And this feels like that. This feels like they want to stick one of these 5 or 6 people in here because they don't like them very much. And then there's like a router here, so they're receiving tons of radiation at the same time. Like this bedroom, this little peep of a bedroom is actually much better. I like the organization from what I see a little bit better compared to what we have here. And things like this, like the bathroom, like I don't know what to tell you, because there's certain aspects, like the light quality is very interesting and very nice, but there's something about the fixtures that they chose, like that. I guess that's my problem overall. Like some of these spaces, like the architecture itself is beautiful on its own, but then their decisions of like casework and fixtures that they use just kind of like remove a little bit of what the architecture is trying to do. Like, for example, take this stair, where you have a stair, you have the light, the architecture is doing its thing, and then they just add this little rail that kind of tends to blend into it, and it's not distracting in any way. Moments like this tend to work better. So overall, I don't know what the budget for this project was. I don't know too much about this project beside the images that I've looked at and the small pieces of text that I've read. But based on the exterior of it, I can't imagine that this was a super expensive project. I could be completely wrong. Maybe this is like, $1 billion project. I have no idea. But I assume that the architects here had a very limited budget, and they were able to create this. It's basically a masterpiece, right? With the exception of the things that I mentioned, like I think that this is such an elegant project with what they had. Now, if you tell me that it is $1 billion project, then we have to make a second part to this video. But assuming, because they even reference this as poor, so if this really was like it was supposed to be like a quaint project, and they basically gave it all their brain juice, they took all their brain juice and were able to create this space, then they nailed it. This is an incredibly powerful project. So we end this video one step closer to the truth behind the conspiracy of architecture. And I hope you guys enjoyed the journey. I will see you in the next one, where we break down another project.